Hey everybody, this is Carl back again for another comic book spoiler review. And taking a break from Marvel for a while. As I mentioned last month, for all of April, I will be doing a Superman heavy review month. So I'm not going to cover every Superman film, and I'm going to probably be a while before I cover the Superman animated series. Um, Although I probably should, but already committed with watching Food Wars, so it's fine. But anyway, Superman for All Seasons is something that was brought up in like a video that I was watching last year, and it was mentioned it was pretty much akin to something like Superman's version of Long Halloween, which is one of my favorite Batman stories. So I wanted to read, for the first time, mind you, the first, like, well, I won't say the first, but like the Superman variation of a Long Halloween, more so just a 1 year long story, essentially, an adventure. Pretty much like, well, in my opinion, it's actually a combination of a Long Halloween-esque kind of tale mixed with his origins, like year one level of Superman story. But because kind of iffy on, with the year one situation, because it kind of skips over some time, so it doesn't really count, really. But you know what I mean, because it's like humble beginnings a little bit in the beginning. Anyway, before I really get into it, please like and subscribe, hit the notification bell if you like content like this and you want to see more. It'll greatly appreciate the assistance in that area. And before we really get the ball rolling, I wanted to commemorate this occasion with the most iconic song ever to hit our ears in the history of ever. Yeah, you just gotta, because honestly, the best theme song. Because honestly, Superman is one of the most iconic heroes of all time. I know people love Batman, and he's like always like the money maker for DC, but keep in mind, if it wasn't for Superman being the first superhero ever, nothing else would exist or wouldn't exist in this as it exists as it we know it to this day, the same way. Wouldn't have Batman or any of the DC people without Superman. Hell, we probably wouldn't even have Marvel if it probably wasn't for Superman. He was the first. And honestly, if you ask anybody, like, draw a generic superhero, by and large, people will draw a Superman-esque type of figure. And it isn't, because some people, because it always grinds my gears how people complain about Superman. It's like, oh, he like, you can't relate to him. Oh, like, this very cynical mindset about the character, because like, what kind of crappy life you must lead if you don't view this individual as the most inspirational icon of all time, probably not since freaking Jesus Christ. Has there ever been somebody as inspirational worldwide? Because you show somebody that symbol anywhere on this planet, they know who that is. He's up there at the same level as Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse, on top of being like, as being the most recognizable character of all time. And he's not meant to be relatable. Superman is an inspiration, and that's why I cannot stand you get like these Homelanders or Omni-Mans, and it's like just for a while people been on like this whole cynical Superman kick, and it's kind of like beating a dead horse, as it were. And my worry is that you're gonna have an entire generation of kids growing up with characters like Omni-Man or Homelander, not realizing they're just perversions or parodies of something that's far more inspirational, because it's just easy to make just like a jerk Superman. And it's like, if you get good writers involved who look to Superman as an revere him as somebody you should respect, an icon, and treat it as such. That's just my 2 cents. It always grinds my gears when I hear people like, crap on Superman. It's like, bitch, you wouldn't have what you like to today if it wasn't for this character. He's been an inspiration to like a lot of stuff. Hell, Goku, Dragon Ball Z, as much as we love Toriyama, a lot of his, if you listen to a lot of like long written English dub of the script of certain characters, certain things that Goku says, like especially on Namek when he was gone Super Saiyan fighting against Frieza, is like a long line. You can look it up. It's like a dialogue that's pretty much a Superman line that doesn't really jive well what we know of Goku, honestly. But you can tell how much Superman has permeated the zeitgeist of the planet. And that's what, he's meant to inspire. That's, he's not meant to be relatable. You can't relate. Hell, you can't relate to Batman. Most people talk about, I relate more to Batman. No, you don't. Because you're not a rich kid. And besides, in order to be like Batman, it takes more than freaking money. It takes a considerable amount of willpower to train as much as he does, to study as much as he does, and to go out every night to do what he does. It doesn't take just money to do all that stuff. You gotta take a whole, Bruce Wayne's built extremely different. Hell, I argue you can relate more to Superman than Batman, because Superman is an ideal. It's like he's meant to, try your best and do as much good as out there in the world as you can. Not to be perfect, but just go out there and try to lend a hand whenever you can. That's what Superman is supposed to do. It doesn't take much to try to do as much good. Not expecting you to be Mother Teresa or anything like that, but just one act of random kindness does the best good in this world. That's why Superman's my second favorite hero of all time, next to Spider-Man, who both give me that same inspiration. I mean, hell, like people like, it's so hard to make a Superman. No, you just don't want to put in the legwork. Hell, you see Captain America do it all the time on the MCU, which once again wouldn't have Captain America without Superman. He's the first domino. Anyway, Superman for all seasons. It's just 4 issues, and like the name says, each issue represents a particular adventure during that particular season. It's written by Jeph Loeb, art by Tim Sale, and I really love the art in this because it's very like it kind of gives me the same feeling as like a reading like a children's book in a way, but also it's kind of like just simple and humble, which you want with the Superman. It's like, you know, just like a humble type of feel to him, you know, and just like, you know, just warm and cozy type of like picturesque kind of, you know, illustration. You just feels right at home in this world. Anyway, each once you start each season, it gives you this, you know, different kind of titles, and each issue is narrated by different characters, none of which has been Superman. So Spring is narrated by his father, John Kent, and all right, and it just blows up because I can't read this cursive writing. A small farm in Kansas, a family like any other, a boy about to fulfill a destiny unlike any other. Witness the humble beginnings of a young man who would grow to become the world's greatest hero. And you're not just whistling Dixie. So we got, of course, a young Clark helping out his, family on the farm. Like, man, and I love the way they draw Clark. I mean, it's like Superman is expected to be, it's like over 6 feet, kind of big, burly. You expect him to be larger than life of a character, and he has to be depicted that way, like almost all the time. He's supposed to be a larger than life figure that's kind of like warm and just it's like he garners such respect because he's more human than any of us, despite him being alien. And he's just like a country bumpkin in a way, but he's just like so sweet and good natured. He just, like Captain America, is just all around good person. And that's why people is like, so cynical about the worldview of or an ideal of a Superman, because they can't fathom somebody just being like a genuine good person. So sorry, I'm just moving stuff around. That's too much. So he just helping out, and John pretty much like knowing full well that mind you, this is spring. Clark is about to graduate high school and eventually move into the stage where he's, really discovering his powers, and eventually, while heading off to Metropolis to start work at the Daily Planet, he'll eventually, starts getting to the role of becoming a superhero. But it's a little like concerned. It's like a lot of like his father's concerned, his mom's concerned, and Clark is concerned about what he's meant to do with all his gifts. It's more so with Jonathan, because throughout his life as a father, he did everything he could to, ever since he found him and Martha found Clark in that little rocket as a baby. They raised him as their own. They looked after him, cared for him, probably spent all these holidays and birthdays and, working on the farm together, getting him to school, all this other stuff. At some point, and speaking of, Superman TV shows, the Superman anime show and Smallville, I want to do some reviews on, because it's been like a mighty long time since I watched the Smallville show. I got like a complete DVD box set my younger brother got for me years ago for my birthday, and it's one of my most treasured gifts that I got in my entire life. And I should have brought it out, really sitting there like kind of collecting dust, because I already gone through all the DVDs. Of course, the CW has its issues. It didn't get really troublesome until like long after season 2 uh of Green Arrow, when we started noticing some CW cliches. But I don't know, maybe next year, I'm not sure, but I want to really get through the Superman anime show and Smallville to cover like my thoughts on each season. Anyway, so now at this turning point in Clark's life where he's a young adult, he wants to get out there in the world, and then he just worried like any father would, but more so with him because now it's like, okay, my son is a bigger deal. I try to teach him as much as I can about life, you know, how to be a good person, like any parent, make sure you prepare your kid for the world. But this is like a bigger deal than your average kid, and it's like you're worried for him, and it's like, will the world accept somebody like him? But you try to instill like all the good manners and everything like that as much as you can, and hopefully it all pans out well. And of course, we also meet up with Lana Lang, Clark's first girlfriend, and her aunt. They all hanging out with the Kents, and just spend some time together before the whole graduation ceremony. It's very, like I said, this is very picturesque. It's like something you see on like a Thanksgiving propaganda poster kind of thing. It's like just a simple family enjoying like a nice little quiet meal with the dog and everything like that. But Clark's been pretty quiet. Lana's taking notice to that. And of course, there's a moment where Jonathan's looking to the stars, and you see like I didn't have the panel here, probably should have, but it's like the stars are reflecting off of his glasses in a very cool way. And in another issue, it'll be reflected again, but through Clark's eyes when he is pondering what he should do. And it's very like a very father and son kind of situation where it's like they're more alike than they realize kind of thing. Of course, Clark, with the super hearing, overhears them very easily about their concerns about what he will do, and their worries about what might happen with him, this, that, and the third. So the next day, after school, Clark and Lana and Jimmy, not Jimmy, I'm thinking about Jimmy Olsen. He kind of looks like a Jimmy. Pete Ross. If it wasn't for Smallville really boosting the character of Pete Ross, he would have been like a very much of a footnote in the supporting cast of Superman's history, in my opinion. And man, I can't help but think if they would have done Smallville today and they cast a black guy to play Pete Ross, there'll be a lot of uproar about race swapping. And half the time I understand there's certain things that you just don't race swap, but I think you can get away with certain characters, like Electro or Pete Ross, because they're kind of like a footnote. You just hire a person who happens to be, it's just race DEI kind of situation wasn't a top of mind with the casting director of Smallville back in the day. So they cast a person who happens to be black, who did the best job out of the bunch, who probably were mostly white people. And I think, I kind of think they want to cast a black guy probably because it's such probably a predominantly white cast. So it could hurt and benefit at the same time, in my opinion. But I don't think it was like a forced inclusion kind of situation like you see a lot in a lot of movies, TV shows, this day and age. He just should be the person best suited for the job. Anyway, Pete Ross here, he's doing this. I don't know why. I kind of know, but I don't know why it's necessary. Where they trying to give him the George Bailey "It's a Wonderful Life" shtick, where it's like, I wish I had $1 million. Hot dog, that thing. And it's like, why? Like, it really, it comes back at the end of the last issue, but even then, I'll get to it, but it just feels like it served no purpose. It kind of left unsatisfied. But even still, this, whole "It's a Wonderful Life" thing doesn't really serve anything, or at least it's supposed to be some kind of joke. I don't know. I don't think it was really needed. But anyway, they go in the shop. They meet like they talk with the local townsfolk that they all know is a small town, Smallville, hence the name. And they all the three friends, they talking about like what they plan on doing. And of course, Lana, like in many iterations, leaves Smallville and starts traveling and everything like that. And of course, Clark ends up, going to be moving to Metropolis to, start like to work there. But then you see like Clark's discovering his X-ray vision when he's trying to go get a haircut, but of course, it doesn't work because for some reason, the clippers, break when they try to clip the hair. And of course, Clark just runs out of there and without any kind of explanation. He comes home, and the parents see him just standing in the field, looking out into the sky, and the father just walks up to him, and the Clark just outwardly just admits, like, "Pa, I'm scared," because he doesn't, and he just hugs him. It's like he knows, and because it's like, they're scared for him, but they know they will get through this together as a family. Then one day, because it's like the Midwest, we tend to get, tornadoes and stuff every once in a while. It's not as crazy as like earthquakes or mudslides or forest fires like in California, or floods in New Orleans or anything like that, or tsunamis in Florida, where there's probably a little bit more frequent than it is where we get like tornadoes. But everything's going crazy, and Jonathan and Martha's trying to batten down the hatches, but then a tornado picks up Clark. But this is when he starts discovering a bit of his flight abilities. He sees one of the people in town that he knows, who works at the gas station. He sees all like the pump is going crazy, and he knows like there's a explosion about to happen. So he barrels through the wind and saves the guy. Of course, the guy thinking he's tripping because like he knows that, well, he's rationalized in his mind like, oh, the wind must have picked up Clark, but I could have sworn he's like he was flying. But he just threw it all away, like, oh, it just must have been a trick of my mind kind of thing. Then after graduation, oh no, well, before we get to that, after the tornado passed by and the town is kind of like messed up a bit, he comes home and he talks with his folks that, at least expressed to his folks, like, I couldn't help but feel like I could have done more, and that's when it triggers something. As is it's kind of like, like any kid discovering what they want to do with their life, and it just hits them one day. Sometimes it's earlier than others, but that's when Clark began getting that spark when he saves that townsman from that explosion. He got bitten by the hero bug, and it's like, I want to do more. And after graduation, he speaks with Lana privately, and he confesses about his powers. And of course, he takes her around the town to, about the town, flying her around a bit. They make out a little. But of course, we know the first girlfriend isn't always the one that you'll ultimately end up with. But, it's odd that there's actually at least a few, but the two major, most of the people that Clark had like a relationship with all had the initials LL to their name. If you look it up, there's like a mermaid, creature that he kind of had like a fling with one time, had like a double L initials to it. And then you got Lana Lang, Lois Lane. Hell, even his arch enemy has double L's to it. It's kind of, I don't know if there was like, the creators of Superman had that in the top of their mind, that they're trying to be a little clever with that, like make it some kind of like a cliche or just like a gimmick or something, or it's just having to be a weird coincidence. But it's just kind of funny when you think about it. So he, some time go by, and then established, Superman's established, and when not fully established, he's just becoming like a headline, top of mind when he really gets out there in Metropolis saving people. Nobody knows who he is. Who is this hero? And of course, Lois Lane's the one who named him Superman. And of course, we get the mild-mannered Clark Kent working for the Daily Planet. And I love this look of Lois Lane so much. I don't know why. It kind of gives me Selena Kyle vibes. During the whole situation where I lightly use the word tried to get Bruce and Selena married, because it was all janking our chain this whole entire time. I don't want to dive too much into it. It was, I hate it because they just don't want to pull that freaking trigger about just marrying this two, because we know they ultimately going to be together, but they spent all this time, Catwoman meeting up with, Talia al Ghul, and doing this whole thing with like Damien and all this other stuff, really like trying to cement her to be like, okay, this is serious, and then double dating with Clark and Lois, and they doing this whole costume thing, going to some costume thing party or some kind of thing, and they switch costumes, and of course Lois and Selena both have raven colored hair, so that's why it's just getting like Selena Kyle kind of isms, not isms, but like the look to her. But I love the dialogue here for Lois, very snappy, gung-ho type of, very she's like a real pistol, like I like this, because this and like the 90s Lois Lane TV show is like how I view Lois Lane, is like that. But then we started seeing like, Superman saving like the, some kid who constantly is out on his freaking balcony. It's not even a balcony, it's literally the right, is not even like a like apartments that have this little, you know, metal ladders where you can step out uh and stand on the thing where you got potted plants and all this other stuff. It's not even something like that. No, he's literally on like practically the edge of a roof of a building, playing around with his baseball and baseball mitt. Idiotic. You see this kid a few times throughout this adventure, and this is the first time Superman saves him, and he saves him at the end a second time, doing the exact same dumb thing. So idiotic. He saves this kid from falling over, and I like this line because there's always a thing when Superman is first introduced to the world. He saves a kid, and the kid, always asks, "Man, I like your suit," and Superman will always respond in these type of stories, "Thanks, my mom made it for me," and it's so charming. It's done in earnest and not in a cheesy way. Of course, it works for Superman being cheesy a little bit because it's like he just, come from the Midwest kind of situation. It's like, like a humble farm boy. So of course, then Lex Luthor gets like a whiff of this, and he's kind of got like a little butthurt because he always gets so when Superman, this god among mortals, he can't fathom somebody who actually want to do genuine good. Anyway, now we're into the summer. And this one will be narrated by pretty sure is Lois Lane. Yeah, Lois Lane. What is it? And a cynical reporter dazzled by a newcomer to the big city, a business magnate enraged by a rival who can't be conquered, and a hero who may be the loneliest man in Metropolis. Witness the transformation of the Man of Tomorrow from figure of mystery to guardian angel of an entire city. So Superman does his thing, saving the city from all sorts of obstacles and mishaps and random bad guys. And he's just flying by, waving to people, "Good morning, Metropolis," and everything like that. And of course, there's a missile headed towards the city, which I love this image here because it's pretty much like, I'm not sure I guess it has like a, not a cloak, but a reflective surface where it's like almost make the whole entire warhead transparent. So that's where, like, when Superman stops it, it's like perfectly have a perfect reflection of him on this thing. And I thought, man, that looks really good. Like I said, there's certain imagery going on in the story that just harkens to those old children's books I used to read. So Superman stops this missile, sends it hurling towards the sun so it can explode, and then flies in the ocean where it was sent via a submarine. And Luthor gets word about what happened, and this is before Luthor went bald, so they going with the balding Lex Luthor in this story. So Luthor just canceled the meeting once he gets word from, I'm not sure, it's either Miss Tessmacher or Mercy Graves. And I kind of, they never really bring back Miss Tessmacher since the first Superman film. Every once in a while they remember Mercy Graves, and I like Mercy Graves in an animated show because she's just like a badass henchwoman who just beats the hell out of anybody that tries to uh be a threat to Luthor, and she's just like no nonsense kind of person. In recent Superman comics, he's very prominent and a kind of sort of ally to Superman, because now Superman's running a corporation, Supercorp kind of situation. It's a long story, but it's kind of fun. Superman, you know, takes the submarine out of the water, brings it to a Metropolis airbase, and rips it open, and tells everybody inside to surrender. Lex Luthor shows up and is like, "This is like harumph. This is not a shabby way of handling things. What do you expect us to do with a giant sub just in the middle of this entire base, and you expect us to clean up after you? Blah blah blah." Then the leaders of this terrorist group comes out and holds Lois Lane hostage because she's just having to be there to do like to do a story about this. And of course, while Lex says he negotiated with people like this all the time, and as he's in the middle of speaking, Superman just, because he's faster than a speeding bullet, mind you, hell, even faster, he quickly gets the gun out of the guy's hands before Luthor even finishes his sentence and destroys that thing. It's like an awesome display of freaking power. And it's like he's even more faster than that. If we really calculate the level of power and speed and vulnerability behind Superman, is darn near incalculable. We only just because if you watch the Death Battle show, in the first one, or even up until the second one, they run like a relative calculations as much as they could cumulatively do. It's like for one example, I'm not going to cover everything, but just for example, whereas they pointed out a little mini little story where Superman was just flying out in space, which is in the Lyra galaxy or something like that, and Jimmy Olsen got this little signal watch where because he's Superman's best friend, and he pressed the button to, no matter where Superman is, he will be the one to be able to hear it. So he will come down there and easily come to his rescues, or if there's some type of problem, he will immediately be summoned. And so there's a situation in Metropolis, and they, in Death Battle, people, they lowballed it for Superman arriving, taking under maybe 10 minutes. The level of travel between a separate galaxy back to the Milky Way galaxy to Earth is just astronomical. It's probably crazy fast. And of course, this is operating on a yellow star or yellow sun, solar radiations, where Superman gets a lot of his power from. But a blue star or blue sun, it even doubles that or possibly triples his power. So making it, Superman or Kryptonians in general are just busted characters in all aspects. They can darn near do anything. Darn near. They're not the only weaknesses towards magic, red sun, or even the kryptonite stuff. And those are the only three components that can easily best a Kryptonian in general. Without those, you're pretty much done. You can't do anything. Or if you're a Kryptonian yourself, then you're on an even playing field. Anyway, while Superman took the weapon out of the criminal's hands, Lois does this little martial arts move to break out of the grasp of this guy and knock him senseless, which impressed Clark immediately. He flies her back to the Daily Planet so she can do her story. And of course, as soon as he flies off, she enters the elevator, comes back on to the the Daily Planet floor, and out comes Clark Kent from this office supplies closet or something. And it's like I said, crazy fast. And it's like, oh, Lois, did anything interesting happen to you today? It's just like, that's my secret to tell, Smallville. I'm not telling, blah blah blah. I just love these two dynamics. It's always great, and I'm glad, at least it's so rare we actually get a comic book industry to actually get, people who are known to, who's supposed to be together, actually together. Because a lot of them, oh, we can't keep Spider-Man and Mary Jane, married in the mainline comic books because, our main readers, can't relate to them because, then it'll age the character, blah blah blah, and you can't tell good stories with that bullshit because Lois and Clark done it for a very long time at this point. Reed Richards and Sue Storm did it for a very long time now. You can do it. You just want to be lazy and don't want to use the excess brain power. But every once in a while, Clark does tend to feel lonely, especially at this point in time. He doesn't know about his cousin Kara, who will known to be Supergirl. He's the at this point in time he is the sole survivor. He doesn't have his son yet. Doesn't have the Superboy clone yet. Steel isn't a thing yet because the reign of Superman didn't happen yet. So yeah, by all aspects, he is the only living Kryptonian left on this in the entire galaxy. And now on top of that, it's like he's at home in his own apartment. He's like just feeling that lonely. He used to have his parents in the house at the very least, but now that's not a thing anymore. So he flies back to Smallville to spend a little time with them. He tries to visit Lana, but it turns out that from the local pastor that Lana's aunt, who was raising her, passed away some time ago, and Lana has been off traveling the world. Nobody's haven't heard from her in a long while. Postcards were sent, but never a return address because she's always moving, I guess. So now Clark doesn't even have his high school girlfriend anymore to at least lean on, because she knows who he is, so he can actually have like a full conversation with her about everything instead of half of one. Because he doesn't have nobody to confide into, and it's kind of sad. Like the most powerful man in the world still can't do everything. He's not exempt from feeling a little lonely. Is the image I was telling you about? Is he's expressing his feelings towards his mother, as deciding like how he should move and everything like that. Yeah, I love the images of how the stars are reflecting off his glasses. It's beautiful. And before the summer ends, there's this like fire in this building, and of course Lex Luthor is building these little drones, model, which will be like kind of proto his suit that we know Lex Luthor to wear, and that will ultimately he will battle with Superman from time to time in. But these are little drone versions of those where he's pretty much trying to overthrow Superman by not stealing his thunder, but kind of stealing his thunder, but also he wants to be looked upon the same way people looked upon Superman, as like a god among mortals. But he's not seeing, or chooses not to see, why Superman does what he does. It's not because he wants to be a god. He wants to be mortal and do what he just can. But he's sent out these little drone-esque robotic things in order to save everybody. Of course he can't do everything. He's trying to mimic Superman as much as he can, but he can't be everywhere at once with these things. So he made quite a few in order to stop the problems of the city, like this fire. But of course, they don't have X-ray vision, and of course, Superman sees there's still someone inside the building, despite what they claim to be it being empty after saving what they found, but they haven't looked hard enough. Superman finds this, unconscious woman, knocks one away, runs in there, blows away as much of the fire as he can, and saves her. And I love this, the dialogue where Lois is narrating, and she makes this little line about like, this is the job for Superman. And it's just like, you feel that it isn't just a line. It's like, this looks like a job for Superman, because Superman is just like somebody you look towards. They know he can practically handle anything, from saving somebody from from jumping off a roof to stopping like a meteor shower coming towards the planet. So he spins around to make a kind of wind tunnel and carries all the flame to the ocean. And I would never even think of doing something like that. If it was me, I would have just, well, I don't know, I would have taken like, those little water towers. It's like, usually have water in it. I would have done something like, lifted that thing and poured over the building to douse out the flames in a quick session. Of course, Superman a little bit more intelligent than that, or at least wiser, or at least he's doing it so long he knows like a better way. So he just spins really fast, calls like a wind funnel or tunnel or whatever, and soaks up the flames and just carries it to the ocean. And of course, like the woman he saved is completely enamored, calling Superman her angel. And of course, now she just built a freaking shrine of this dude. It kind of reminds me of Helga from Hey Arnold. I'm dating myself here, but it kind of reminds me of Helga from Hey Arnold, where she literally has a shrine of Superman, still calling him her angel. Super obsessed. Of course, the building that was burned down was like something that was owned by LexCorp, because most buildings in Metropolis is owned by Lex one way or the other. But he comes to visit her, and he just like, oh God, it just seemed like who he views as like a enemy, just having all this memorabilia and posters and every news clipping of him all over the place. It's just like he's walking to like a shrine of his enemy, and it bothers him so much. But yeah, that would be like the end of the summer. Now we're going to be beginning the fall area, where is Luthor this time narrating. And get some water real quick. Let's read this. The first citizen of Metropolis bowed, but not yet beaten. An entire city felled by a foe that Superman cannot battle, and a moment in which Superman learns that not all lives can be saved. This is the gripping story of Superman's dread realization that even his powers are not always enough. The fall. I kind of wish they kind of really lean into the whole fall aspect, like showing like Halloween and Thanksgiving. And in terms of like the spring, I guess you got graduation, but I kind of wish you also get something like Valentine's Day. But maybe they'll be leaning too far into the whole long Halloween aspect of it, because that's what that book did. Here, I guess they just want to stick with just the season, but I guess you can get it. But I kind of wish you just kind of threw in the holidays, at least a couple of the holidays, because like summer, it's like what you get, like 4th of July, uh, you know, uh, oh, holidays in summer. 4th of July, Memorial Day counts as a summer thing. I don't know. But and they mentioned about how hot it is, so they kind of expressed the heat wave during the summer. But still, it's kind of throwing like a holiday or two just to emphasize the, the season that we're in. But whatever. At this point, some more time passed. Lex Luthor get caught with one of his little schemes. Of course, I'm thinking it has something to do with the whole submarine thing, because Superman did say that he's gonna look into it and see if he has any dealings whatsoever with these terrorist people with this sub. I will come after you. And so I guess this is maybe it has something to do with that, but it's Lex Luthor. He could be getting arrested for a myriad of things. So he's getting booked. Of course, he doesn't stay too long. Lois is ready to like snap a picture and try to get a quote from him as he's exiting the police station. And of course, he comes home, bitter that this demigod is pretty much like bested him, and this doesn't sit well with Luthor because he's not used to being bested by anybody or taking L's. So you get this cool image, which is, I don't know if the TV show got inspiration from this little moment, but Superman just floats outside of Lex's window, and Luthor's just doing all the talking, and Superman is not responding. He just looks at him condescendingly a bit, or very judgmentally, and it's kind of, I like it better in the show because it kind of infuriates Luthor, and he try to throw something at him. Of course, Superman catches it because he's not going to get, even if he just lets it hit him, it's not going to hurt him. But it's like he just says like, "I'm watching you." But it's kind of reminds me of that, and it's really fun. Just deep inside, you can tell like Lex is just stewing, and then because he can't do nothing, he can't conquer this. He conquers almost everything else, but he can't conquer this because this guy won't budge. He's not. He's a movable object as he's trying to plow through everything but this individual. And it just burns him. But you later find out that the this woman named Miss Vaughn, who is obsessed with Superman. Lex pretty much kidnapped this poor woman and puts her in some kind of psychosomatic type of indoctrination kind of thing, where because she's like a biochemist, which Luthor is going to be exploiting pretty soon, and he's going to be using her against Superman to try to take him down. We'll see in a minute as to how. So after some time, this is not too long, but it's like possibly a few days, possibly a week. At some point, all of Metropolis is feeling, at least nearly all of Metropolis is feeling effects of a fever. Everybody's falling unconscious, except for Superman because of his immune system is powered up thanks to the solar radiation. He's not affected, and he is flying around trying to keep accidents from happening as much as possible, checking on everybody to make sure everybody's okay. So he finds this scientist who's in her lab, saying like he's saving trains from colliding into buildings as everybody's just completely passed out. doesn't know what heck's going on. So he ends up finding this scientist who luckily was in this kind of chamber, was kind of sealed off from while she's studying something. So he's, you know, sealing everything off on the outside, so she wasn't affected. And as Superman goes to her to try to study this thing and figure out what happened, she's limited on what, you know, is going on. She knows some kind of pathogen that's gotten into the air system that took a while to build up, but it was, you know, it went out there. But in order to get more detail, the next best person who probably will have more resources and knowledge will be Luthor. So Superman just begrudgingly have to go to Luthor in order to figure this out. And of course, Superman, well, of course, Lex immediately goes into blame mode. That's like, because he, in his little high rise, and his scientists are unaffected by this mysterious pathogen, because the way everything's all sealed up, you know, to protect him from any kind of maybe assassinations or whatever. And he blames Superman, like, maybe it's you, because you're an alien, you probably brought in some kind of diseases or something or other. And Superman fires back, well, maybe it's you. Well, if I break this glass window, drag you out here, and I bet you have scientists at the ready with some kind of antidote, and just in case something might transpire. I know you probably had something to do with it. Of course he's right, but he can't prove it. Because Lex's greatest power is his mind. He, you know, Superman, smart as he is, isn't, you know, because he processes information faster than your average person. But Luthor is, you know, one of the smartest men in the DC universe. You're right out there with like Mr. Terrific, Batman, a couple other, you know, geniuses in the DC universe, but you know, they're up there. So, you know, of course, Clark is just like, now he's, you know, Luthor is getting under his skin, where it's like, okay, I cannot stoop to your level by dragging you out here and causing you to purposely get infected. That wouldn't be right. So can you help me? He has to swallow his pride and ask for help, which is something Luthor will rarely ever do unless somebody had to really push him to the point where it's like, okay, literally your life is at stake, or the whole entire planet is at stake. So you got to go to Superman for assistance, type of thing. There's got to be something grander to kind of force Luthor to go begging for Superman's help. But this ain't one of those times. So out walks Miss Vaughn, who wants to be named Toxin, who admires Superman so much where she really wants to be his hero partner, and she want to go by Toxin, where her outfit is very 80s. I don't know, it's like something like you see in like an 80s, you know, sci-fi action movie or something. You know, using this big doser gun, and Luthor says she cooked up, she being a chemist, she cooked up a antidote to this pathogen. What she needs to do is be able to get above the clouds so she can put it into like the clouds, so it cause like a rain that will douse everybody with this antidote. And I'm just feeling so bad for this woman. She literally just got brainwashed and manipulated by Luthor and just used as like a pawn without a second thought. So Superman takes her above the clouds. She injects her antidote, which helps everybody, but it's bittersweet because after he flies her back down, she starts getting sick. And according to Luthor, well, being so close to that disease in those clouds would, affect her system, and her heart just immediately stops. And this wrecks Superman because Luthor points out, and which we all know, we read or watched a lot of Superman material, that despite Superman's power, not only can't save everyone, he can't be everywhere at once, but he can't save you from death. That's the one thing, like, he knows full well he's not able to do, despite him trying to save everybody. It's one of the hardest lessons superheroes have to learn about this stuff. Spider-Man had to learn it, Batman definitely had to learn it, so on and so forth. And then of course Luthor hits him like, go back to where you came from. It's like, Donald Trump is pretty much like, Lex Luthor, but without the genius part. So now Superman's in a depressed state. He ends up going back home with his tail between his legs. And now Lex is pretty much running the show once again, even to the point where all those billboards that had like Superman stuff on it, Lex made sure there's new billboards in front of those, just so you can really like kind of put like a foothold into the city. Now we're in the winter time, where it's narrated by Lana Lang, where she's back in town and is instrumental in getting Clark back on that horse. A small town girl torn apart by the knowledge that her childhood friend is the Man of Steel, a force of nature threatening to tear apart everything a Kansas community has struggled to achieve, and a hero who must learn that he cannot run away from his problems or his responsibilities. Experience the final chapter in the majestic tale of Superman's transformation from country boy to the world's greatest superhero. Okay. So once again, that little boy on his roof playing around, this time getting rescued by one of the Lex bots. And this Lex bots, unlike Superman, who's a little more comforting, Lex bots is like a big lecture. And of course, it's like one of those things. Look, it's like the billboards that I was mentioning right here. Like, you just out of sheer pettiness, puts like a brand new billboard right in front of the billboard that has like Superman's not logo, but like, this is Superman's town kind of situation people put up. Lex of course doesn't like that, so he just pettiness puts a new one up there to emphasize this is his city more so than anybody else's. And of course Lana is back home, done with traveling for a while, and decides to hang out. And once again, it's winter time at this point, so kind of expect a little bit more like Christmas paraphernalia strewn about all over the place. But I guess snow was enough. She kind of, teases him about wearing his old Letterman's jacket, where it's kind of like, dude, how corny that is at our age. We haven't been in high school for years. So she decides to walk to the local general store to meet up with Pete Ross and the other townsfolk, and she wanted to just do the long walk, despite flying, because she spent most of her time flying in the air by plane to places. She just want to be able to enjoy the walk. They meet up with Pete and see all the old people, the old acquaintances of theirs. Of course, Pete is in his freaking feelings because now he's not doing the whole cliche George Bailey thing anymore. Because he's bitter against Lana and especially Clark about because they were able to get out of the town and Pete's still stuck in Smallville. He never really got out there. So, of course, he got nobody to blame but himself, but he blames Clark and Lana because, y'all can go back and forth whenever y'all want to, but you got this big city lifestyle that I only dreamed of because he's pretty much George Bailey. He always wanted to get out of the freaking town. But my biggest issue is okay, you bring this up. I kind of get it, but you don't resolve it. This never is resolved in the story. You never wrap it up on a book in this particular conflict that one of Clark's oldest friends is having. That hey, my friend is hurting. He feels like he didn't accomplish nothing because he's stuck in this town and never really explored the world the same way Clark and Lana have. I kind of wish they kind of addressed that, but they never do. So it's kind of like, what's the point of this then? Of course, then after trying to have some dinner with Clark and his parents, the local sheriff shows up at the house warning about a potential flood happening because one of the dams is cracked. And once he leaves, Lana makes a reference about Superman moving mighty rivers and everything like that. And Clark then admits, yeah, she knows already. And it's why didn't you express that not too long after that you showed her that you can fly all those years ago? That's kind of odd. But anyway, they start, getting some stuff for Martha and John to take to the shelter with Lana. And of course, he's wearing his Superman costume underneath his big trench coat, which is something very weird to see for Superman. It's kind of something that you expect the Benjamin Grimm the Thing to do, or Raphael from Ninja Turtles to do, not somebody from like Superman. But I guess he's trying to be incognito, obviously, because you don't know who's might be watching, so he's wearing that trench coat. But this is where Lana kind of points out to Clark that, because after he's obviously expressed about the whole ordeal in Metropolis, that he is impacted by the death of an innocent person because of him, because he couldn't save her. And Lana had to express to him that you save who you can. You can't save everybody, but you do your best. You save who you can. But don't let that those bumps in the road stop you from doing what you know needs to be done. They share a kiss, so he flies off to start saving as many people as he possibly can along the way, plugging up the dam as much as possible. And you just love seeing Superman's display of his powers. And I argue it's very important. If I was a Superman writer, every time I write for Superman, it's every issue he has to display every aspect of his power at all times. And it's just to emphasize, not just a couple of powers issue. No, every issue he's got to display his cold breath, his normal super breath, his flight, speed, invulnerability, heat vision, X-ray vision, super hearing, super strength. He has to display that each one of those at least once in each issue all the time, because the level of power and utilize them in very you well, it doesn't always have to be unique ways, but it helps just to show that this dude's super, hence the freaking name. uh but then the flood gets kind of hectic. It jumbles the car, which causes John and the dog to flop out. The ladies cry out for Clark, and he picks it up, quickly flies and saves his father from drowning, and then rescues the dog. And this is when like the storm dies down a bit. Everybody, after the whole ordeal, convened at the church where the pastor is giving this big sermon about there will be trying times in our lives, but it's kind of explaining why there's like, if you see, some people ask like, why is such evil in the world? Well, people go through strife and evil just so we know, or at least appreciate all the good that will come through that. A lot of triumphs that we know of come about through after some tragedy or something, and this is something that Clark especially needed to hear, not from the pastor but from Lana. Is like, there will be trying times, but you got to power through that, because it's always darkest before the dawn kind of situation. So he comes back to Metropolis at the paper after taking some time off, but he comes back with a hit, like a hit front page story about Superman saving Smallville. And of course, Lois gets in her feelings about it. It's like she got scooped by mild-mannered Clark Kent. But then the story ends with Superman saving the little kid from once again trying to darn near falling off the building. But it's of course the robot kind of lectures the kid already during the summer about playing out there, but Superman should have expressed that as well, like, stop playing out on his legs, kid. But this is when the kid actually, for the first time, introduces himself. But of course, like, Lex sees him flying around, like, I'm back kind of situation. Like, I'll get you next time, Superman. But the kid introduces himself to Superman, like, hi, my name is Trevor, or Trev. And it's like, good to meet you, Trev. They call me Superman. And it was nice. It's nice little simple story. Doesn't need to be a big catastrophic world ending type of thing. It's just like a simple adventure with simple adversaries Superman has to overcome. The greatest stories doesn't always have to be Superman trying to punch through something, because of course he'll more than likely always come out on top. But the best stories with Superman is something that he can't punch his way through. He has to overcome certain characteristics or drawbacks or worldviews or something like that. And in this case, Superman overcoming depression, essentially. That even Superman can get depressed or feel defeated by a bump in the road of life, but thanks to some encouragement by family and friends, that you can get back on that horse. Don't let that you learn from this mistake. Like Yoda from Star Wars would say, failure is our greatest teacher. And this is something that Superman can learn from and just be better. You just keep trying, and that's what really matters. But yeah, that was Superman for All Seasons. Like and subscribe, share this with your friends. Let me know, what is your favorite Superman story? Now, this will probably be the second It was definitely the second Superman comic book that I've reviewed. The first one being Superman Earth One during uh, uh, my early year in doing a comic book review, so it wasn't really finely tuned. But check out my Earth One Superman uh, review up on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. And yeah, stay tuned. In a few minutes, I'll be covering the first Superman movie and doing my review on that. So look forward to that. But besides that, I will see you guys soon. Take care. Be well.